Have you ever wondered where your files actually live in Linux? If you're coming from Windows with its C drive, D drive, and E drives, the Linux file system can seem like a confusing maze at first. But here's the thing, once you understand the logic behind it, Linux actually makes a lot more sense than what you're used to. Today, we're going to demystify the Linux directory tree with a simple, beginner-friendly breakdown. By the end of this guide, you'll understand exactly where everything goes, why it's organized this way, and how this knowledge will make you a more confident Linux user. The key insight is this: everything in Linux, and I mean everything, starts from one single point called root, represented by a simple /. Let's explore how this elegant system works. Let's start at the very beginning, the root directory, shown here as that red box with just a simple /. This is the foundation of the entire Linux file system. Unlike Windows, where you have separate drives like C, D, and so on, Linux has just one tree structure. And everything, your files, system programs, hardware devices, network connections, everything branches out from this single root. Think of it like a family tree, but upside down. The root is at the top, and everything else branches downward from there. No matter where you are in the system, you can always trace your path back to this single starting point. This might seem strange at first, but it's actually incredibly powerful because it means you always know where you are in relation to everything else in the system. From the root, we have several main branches, each with a specific purpose. Let's walk through the most important ones. The boot directory, this is where your system's boot files live. Think of this as the launchpad for your entire operating system. It contains the kernel, which is the core of Linux, and grub, which is the bootloader that gets your system started when you turn on your computer. The etc directory, this is your system's configuration center. If Linux were a house, etc would be the control panel where all the settings are kept. System-wide configurations, user account information, network settings, it all lives here. The home directory, this is your personal space. Just like Windows has a users folder, Linux has home. Each user gets their own folder here where they can store documents, pictures, downloads, and personal configurations. The lib directory, these are system libraries. Think of libraries as collections of code that programs can use. It's like a toolkit that multiple programs share instead of each program carrying its own copy of common functions. And the var directory. This is where variable data lives, things that change frequently, like log files, mail, cache files, and system databases. If your system is keeping track of something that changes over time, it probably lives in var. Now let's look at the USR directory. This is a big one. USR originally stood for user, but today it's more like Unix system resources. This is where most of your applications and user programs live. Looking at the diagram, you can see USR has its own internal structure. USR bin contains user binaries, the executable programs you run every day. USR lib has libraries specific for user programs. USR share contains shared data like documentation and icons. And USR local is for software you compile and install yourself. The beautiful thing about this organization is that it separates system-critical programs, which live elsewhere, from user applications. This makes the system more stable and easier to manage. The opt directory is for optional software packages. Many third-party applications install themselves here to keep things clean and organized separate from the main system programs. Let's cover the utility directories. The temp directory is for temporary files. Programs use this space for short-term storage, and most Linux systems automatically clean this directory on reboot. It's like a digital scratchpad that gets wiped clean regularly. The media directory is where removable media gets automatically mounted. When you plug in a USB drive, insert a CD, or connect an external hard drive, Linux automatically makes it accessible through media. The MNT directory is the manual mount point. This is where system administrators manually mount file systems, network drives, or other storage devices that need to be attached to the directory tree. For the more technical directories, The sbin directory contains system binaries. These are administrative tools that typically only the root user or system administrators use. Think of commands for managing disk partitions, network interfaces, or system services. The bin directory has essential user binaries, basic commands that every user might need even in emergency situations. Commands like ls, cp, mv live here. The dev directory represents devices. In Linux, everything is treated as a file, including hardware devices. Your hard drives, keyboard, mouse, and even random number generators are accessible as files in dev. The expanded view at the bottom shows how var branches out into specific purposes: account information, runtime data, crash reports, games data, libraries, cache, mail systems, and much more. What makes this system so elegant is its predictability. Once you learn these patterns, you can find anything. Need to check system logs? They're in var.log. Looking for a program's configuration? Check etc. Want to install software manually? Use USR local or opt. Need temporary space? Use temp. Looking for your personal files? They're in home/your username. This isn't arbitrary. It's a carefully designed system that's been refined over decades. Each directory has a purpose, and that purpose is consistent across virtually every Linux distribution you'll encounter. Here are some practical tips for navigating the system. The / at the beginning of a path means you're starting from root, so home/john/documents is an absolute path, starting from the very top of the tree. Paths without a leading slash are relative to where you currently are, so if you're in home/john, just typing documents refers to the same location. You can always use pwd to see where you are, and ls/ to see all the main directories branching from root. The cd/ command takes you back to the root directory from anywhere in the system. Understanding the structure isn't just academic, it makes you a more effective Linux user. When you're troubleshooting, you know where to look for log files, configuration files, and program files. When you're installing software, you understand where files get placed and why. When you're managing a system, you can navigate efficiently without getting lost. When you're learning new commands or reading documentation, the file paths make sense because you understand the underlying organization. Most importantly, this knowledge transfers between Linux distributions. Whether you're using Ubuntu, CentOS, Debian, or any other Linux flavor, this basic structure remains consistent. Remember, everything connects back to that single root, the / at the top. This unified tree structure is one of Linux's greatest strengths. There are no drive letters to remember, no arbitrary separations between system areas. It's all one cohesive system where everything has its place and every place has a purpose. Once you internalize this structure, Linux stops feeling foreign and starts feeling logical. You'll find yourself navigating confidently, understanding where files belong, and appreciating the elegant simplicity of this time-tested design. Linux feels much easier to explore and manage once you understand this foundational concept. So, there you have it, the Linux file system demystified. From that single root directory, everything branches out in a logical, predictable pattern. System files, user programs, personal data, temporary storage, device access, it all has its proper place in this elegant tree structure. The next time you open a terminal or file manager in Linux, you'll know exactly where you are and how to get to where you need to go. This foundational knowledge is your key to becoming comfortable and confident in the Linux environment. Start exploring these directories, see what's inside them, and before long, navigating Linux will feel as natural as finding your way around your own neighborhood.